Thank you all for joining us. This afternoon, we're going to have an in-depth discussion with members from the Parliament of the World's Religion. This panel is called Putting Faith in Interfaith, Moving Beyond the Dialogue. So before we get started, I just want to just give you a little intro about the Parliament of the World's Religion. The Council for the Parliament of the World's Religion is the oldest, largest, and most inclusive summit of faith communities in the world, which traces back to the 1893 Parliament, which was held on the shores of Lake Michigan, right here in Chicago, during the World's Columbian Exposition. It was this very first parliament that the religions of the East met with the religions of the West, and they began to explore formal dialogue together, hence beginning the modern-day interfaith movement in America as we see it today. The Parliament of the World's Religions is a leading conduit for convening thousands of faith leaders from 80 nations and 50 faith traditions from all around the world as a way for peace builders to engage with other faith-based institutions to foster a more peaceful, just, and sustainable world. Historically, the interfaith movement has been dubbed as a mission with no purpose, and potentially inauthentic in that it is perceived by some that certain groups utilize the interfaith platform as a means of proselytization or a means for political or religious or economic gain. But in reality, though, it is an opportunity for people of faiths to stay connected through dialogue as they each strive to work towards a greater mission or a greater cause. Subsequently, the interfaith movement has evolved and has significantly grown, but yet we still face many challenges as we strive to push beyond the simple dialogue to garner greater support to advance the true mission of interfaith work. As they prepare to host the first parliament in the United States in 22 years, our esteemed guests are here today to share best practices about participating in interfaith activities and how their interfaith relationships have enhanced their own personal religious observations and strengthened their own faith. They will share stories of resilience, of how Muslims have stood alongside other faith groups as neighbors to bring about better outcomes for society and humanity at large. The Parliament continues to push the boundaries as they set the bar high for what can really be achieved in interfaith work. These speakers are devoted, and they devote a tremendous amount of time and effort to transforming the interfaith movement itself, and we are glad to have them today. So today we're just going to have an informal, organic style conversation with the Parliament, and we're going to leave some time at the very end if anybody has any questions. So as the conversation progresses, just please think about what you might like to ask our guests. So with us today, we have Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, who is the founding president of Sound Vision and is serving as the chair of the Parliament of the World's Religion Convention, which, if you don't know, the convention will take place next month in Salt Lake City, October 15th through the 19th, and we're hoping maybe some of you could join us. We also have Dr. Mohammad Siddiqi, who is a professor and the director of journalism at Western Illinois University and is also a board member at the Parliament. We have Janaan Hashim, who is an adjunct professor at McCormick Theological Seminary and is also a board member with the Parliament. And last but not least, we have Malik Horan, who is the Director of Communications for the Parliament of the World's Religions, and she focuses much of her time on coordinating programs that counteract the rising hate and anti-Muslim bigotry that we encounter daily. So I would like to start with a question for you, Imam Abdul Malik. So we all know that there are misconceptions and a lot of skepticism around interfaith work. I've been doing interfaith work for a number of years, and even still, I get lots of questions about what's the purpose, what's the point, why do you do it, where are you going with this? So I just want to get like a personal perspective. Why do you do the work that you do at the Parliament?
Assalamu alaikum. My parents raised me by doing things which they thought is the core of Islam. That is standing up for qist, which is justice, fairness, and equity. Allah says in the Quran that we sent all the prophets, so they help people stand up for qist, which is the Quranic term meaning fairness, justice, equity, justice in the broadest sense possible. While here, just a few days after my arrival in Hyde Park at the University of Chicago, I saw I heard noises about 2 a.m. or so. I looked down and I saw 3 police cars and one boy he looked around 10 or 12-year-old. He was black. And they had hand on his neck and his face was being thrown on the body of the car repeatedly. And I didn't know what to do. I created noise so they know that what is going on. Finally, one police officer came in between that officer and that boy and arrested them. I said, what in the world is that? A question of justice came, what's my role? So I asked people, I'm just a student here, just arrived, but how this thing? And then a friend who was about 10 years older than me, a Orthodox priest, former Orthodox priest, right in the library, like Joseph Frankenstein Library at the Hyde Park, somebody pointed at him, he stole my TV. And he was just arrested. Now the guy is so anti-technology freak that he doesn't care for phone or television or any of the electronic things. He just loves books and he stays in the library all day long. So I said, I just simply cannot avoid. I went that, what can I do for this person? So it turned out in a close-by church, there is a group which meets on injustices. Now this person was also black. And so my first march was within a first month of arrival in America in the front of the University of Chicago Library. And where did we organize? We organized in a close-by church. So I realized the churches are part of the struggle, peace, and justice. So as I continue to participate, I realized one of the major forums where people of peace and justice meet, organize, network, and act upon is the interfaith movement. But I remain somewhat a skeptic of it because I thought, interfaith people talk too much and act very little. And they're somewhat goofy in their niceness. They're so nice, it becomes somewhat uncomfortable. But they mean well. So I kept hanging around until the parliament in 1993 happened in Chicago. I was not quite well, but I was one of the signatories of the declaration there. But then Nelson Mandela, which I supported from the bottom of my heart, so parliament was about to happen in South Africa. And I say, I will go. I went still a skeptic of interfaith movement, but went to participate. And there I learned that I'm being dragged in to give this lecture and that lecture. I say, I didn't sign up for any of these lectures. So it turned out the group of Muslims, a powerful group of Muslims, have issued a boycott of the interfaith movement. And there were demonstrations. On one side, almost this distance on the stage were Muslims demonstrating, and these were all South Asian Muslims. On that side, that far away, there was a bunch of white Christian folks demonstrating, and both demonstrating against the parliament. I say, interfaith movement is this strong for some people to protest it? So I got some respect for the interfaith movement. On the second and the third day, I saw that this group and that group, both boycotting the parliament, were talking to each other. So I said, whatever was keeping them apart, finally they found a common cause. I came back to Chicago. I went to Parliament office. I said, can I volunteer for you? That's how I joined it.
Thank you, Imam Abdul Malik. Of course, the verse from the Quran that comes to mind is that we have created you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. It doesn't say, I have created you Muslims so that you may know one another. So if we don't talk to each other, how are we going to know one another? So I'd like to direct my next question to you, Dr. Mohammad. In your view, why is interfaith engagement so important, not just in civic society, but perhaps in your own personal life as well?
I think engagement is at the very core of the progress of human culture and civilization. That's why when somebody is incarcerated and put in solitary confinement, that person is considered as the harshest punishment. It is through engagement that we learn and appreciate about other people, other culture, our neighbors. Even inside the family, families that are well engaged, they are able to appreciate each other better, and it is through engagement that we discover the potential and capabilities of people who are around us. So when I landed in Macomb, Illinois, which by definition is close to nowhere, 240 miles southwest of Chicago, in a university town, and I saw that in this very small town of about 20,000 people, that included 12,000 students and 1,000 faculty members, there are about 60 churches. So I just went to the Baptist church, and I met with the pastor, and I said, well, can I come to one of your Sunday services? He said, but why are you interested in coming to our Sunday services? I said, because in India, I know a lot about Hinduism, Hindu culture. I have a very few friends who are Christian. But here I have the opportunity because when I drive, I see a variety of churches. So I want to understand the diversity that exists among Christians. I want to make friends. And he said, well, does that mean that you are going to invite me to your mosque also? I said, absolutely. It's open. So I went there and participated in the Sunday services. And it so happened that it was the month of Ramadan. And the pastor, he came to our mosque. And one of the students from Saudi Arabia with a very beautiful recitation of Quran was reciting Quran. And he said, well, was that Quran? I said, yeah, that was Quran. He said, well, I feel, and I will be very frank, I don't like Islam. But I felt that something was happening here. And that was the beginning of our friendship. And then next year at the anniversary of 9/11, 4th anniversary of 9/11, he says, well, why can't we have this anniversary at the mosque? And I said, well, the mosque is very small. We don't have even chairs to accommodate like 100 people. And he said, well, we have a truck in our church, and I can bring all the chairs from our church to your mosque, but can we have it in the mosque? I said, yes. And there we saw Hindus, Buddhists, Christians, Jews, and even those who don't believe in any religion. They came together. And after that meeting, we established Macomb Area Interfaith Alliance. And we met informally every first Monday of the month during lunch hour at one of the churches or synagogues or temples or mosques. And I learned a lot. So I think it is through engagement that we discover the beauty that God has put in every human being. Because Allah has said in Quran لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We have created human being as our best creation. Allah did not say we have created Muslims only as the best. So in every human being, there is a uniqueness and there's a beauty, and it is through the engagement. And that really pushed me more deeper into the interfaith movement.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Siddiqi. Janaan, tell me a little bit about your experience. What brought you to the Parliament? And as a sister or a covered girl, have you experienced any challenges, or what? Tell me a little bit about your maybe challenges, and then also any victories you may have had within the interfaith work.
Cover girl?
Yeah,
that's all I remember.
Covered girl. We're covered ladies.
Yeah. Subhanallah, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. I kind of fell into it by accident, thanks to Brother Malik. The parliament in Barcelona in 2004 was occurring, and he was actually trying to recruit my father to speak. And my father couldn't make it, and we brainstormed some ideas of panels, and he asked me to speak on one of them, and I said, sure. And then another speaker for another panel couldn't make it, and that was actually a really big one in terms of space and number of people who attended, and standing room only. It was about secularism and democracy in the hijab. And this was in Europe, so it was a really, really hot button issue. And we had a member of parliament from the Turkish parliament there speaking, and we had somebody from France speaking, myself. And seeing the reaction and the conversations that happened in the hallway, people coming up to you, but you're in America. Yeah, but I'm wearing a hijab. Yeah, but you're in America. Why? I was like, because it's who I am. And because I have that choice. That's right. And it's a good opportunity to educate, and these Europeans are scratching their heads, but why? But eventually, through conversation, and a respectful conversation, we leave in our own ways, but better understanding each other. That whole ayah is so, it's on the mark. And I think that's the beauty of the parliament. And I just kind of got attracted to it from that component. I never thought about participating in interfaith dialogue, or what I tell my students now, interfaith engagement. I tell people, good comes from the parliament. Allahu alam why. One theory I come up with, maybe it's because these are all people of faith. They have their own faiths. It's not mine. We're not trying to convert each other, we're trying to understand each other. And maybe because that common core is there, just faith brought us together, is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses it with good coming out of it. It's a small example of good for me personally. At that big secularism or secular topic that we had, I met an individual from Chicago. He did a follow-up with me, and now I teach there. It's at McCormick Seminary. And from that experience, we decided to develop the class that we teach, Religious Pluralism in the Ministry. And from there, my students go out to different houses of worship. That's the engagement part. They broaden their comfort zone of, well, I'm comfortable in my church, but they're willing to take that step. And then how do you be a good guest in a gurdwara? How are you a good guest in a temple, whether it's a Hindu temple or a synagogue? But they become comfortable in that setting, so they become better chaplains. So good comes out of it. I can tell you many, many other stories. You mentioned challenges. I think the biggest challenge right now, I haven't had anything personally, a personal challenge to me, other than how can we shift the conversation from dialogue, because I'm tired of dialogue, shift it to action. That's the biggest challenge right now. And one last point, I'll never forget at the Barcelona Parliament, I was sitting in one of the sessions, and there was this rabbi who was talking. He said something that clicked. And he was quoting one of the sages. He said, when we communicate, we understand. When we understand, we respect. And then I'll take it one step further myself, not that I'm a sage or anything, but when we respect, comes peace. And isn't that all we want? We want to be respected. I don't want to be tolerated. I want to be respected. And everybody else out there wants to be respected. And think about the bigger picture. What comes from that? But it all starts with communication. But the biggest challenge now is getting to make that communication with each other, that dialogue, that respect, into action, inshallah.
Yes, actually, that's exactly the point of this panel, inshallah, and I'm hoping we can discuss some, or brainstorm and talk about some ideas on how we can do that. I know we at ISNA, if I didn't introduce myself, my name is Nadia, and I'm the Government and Interfaith Relations Coordinator for the Islamic Society of North America, and we've actually partnered with the Parliament of the World's Religions to work together and try to find new ways of how we can move beyond that dialogue, and actually I've had the great pleasure of working with Malik over the past few months, and they've, mashallah, are doing some great work as their convention is coming up right around the corner. So one of the things that we've been looking at is interfaith coalition building, and a lot of what has to go into that, because we are not a monolithic group, and we have different identities and different, beliefs and how do we come together to work together to get to another point, to get to a greater mission or cause and achieve more things. So, Molly, what I wanted to ask you is that since you've been working so intimately with some of the programs at the Parliament, tell me a little bit about how this conference or this convention will differ from the 1993 Parliament.
Ooh. Well.
I know you weren't around at that time, but if you don't,
I was alive. Yeah.
I know you weren't with the you weren't working with the Parliament at that time.
How old were you then?
Yeah, you must. So
I was a child, but I was a child with a heart for justice. I grew up in predominantly white neighborhood where neighbors of other races were starting to move in, and parents of my friends were starting to freak out and wanting to know more about the other families before we got together and played. So that heart came to me when I came to the Parliament. I wasn't okay with that. I didn't quite understand it, but I knew I wanted to do something. So when I found out about the Parliament, I didn't know we were going to be doing a conference in 2015. I just knew a lot about the legacy and the history. I came to understand it's a great conversation where people from around the world get to talk about the things that scare them and what they can do together to overcome that. So here in 2015, we decided to take the interfaith movement back to its home base and invite people from around the world, just like we have before, to come together and talk about sustaining the environment, realizing that that's the greatest threat that faces all of us. So how better to bring people together than to talk about that issue, but also during a time when technology is a lot stronger than it was in 1993. And one person's remark can cut across a whole culture of people and make them feel dehumanized. So why not play on the other side and be a positive role model for the rest of humanity? I think that's the greatest difference between now and then, because I monitor and moderate our Facebook page, and we've been able to connect with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of more people just through images, just through cutting beyond the words and just seeing what's happening on the other side of the world and just asking, what can you do? Will you think about this? Will you talk to your family about these issues? What can you contribute? And by asking that question time and time and time again, you find people of faith who maybe can't escape their calling for justice. Maybe they feel nourished by their call for justice, and no matter what different religion they believe in, there's that common core. So I think now we have a lot more at stake. I remember hearing the reason behind the 93 Parliament when they were trying to figure out what the issues would be that would bring people together. They thought, let's line up a lot of people to ask themselves, what is wrong in the world right now that would make you hesitate to want future generations of children to be born into it? What is that about life that we need to change? And I think now children and teenagers and college students are still living in a world where they question why so much is wrong. But we're taught so much more to come together, and each generation moving 20 years, 20 years, 20 years, sees less of the difference and sees more of the reason to come together. So I think we're going to have a lot more youth this time, and having that energy is going to be tremendously helpful. And we're going to have more generational difference to talk to each other and pass down the lessons of 22 years of parliament work and the energy and enthusiasm and boldness and courage of these young people who aren't going to stand for the things that their parents wondered would keep them from being born. So I think that's a huge component of it as well. And as I brought up the Facebook page, I just want to make sure that I mention, I didn't know what I was going to do when I became the moderator of this page, and I'm exposing myself. So if you have any questions about our page, you can come to me. I had to learn. I didn't come in with any expertise about social media. I just came in with a desire to connect with others. And we tried different things, and our community wasn't that large. It was maybe 7,000 people. And we started this Faiths Against Hate program and tried to start thinking about ways that we can create our own images, not just pull people to the parliament, but use a voice for the parliament. And the first time I ever saw a post go viral, it was when I asked non-Muslims to say Ramadan Mubarak to Muslims. And that image went to hundreds and hundreds and thousands of people. And it made me feel like, wow, if this is how we tap into people by just asking them to acknowledge one another and to learn about what's going on in the daily lives of people who have different beliefs than them, we're going to create much better outcomes. So I'm very proud of what happened in 1993. Everyone I meet that has attended that parliament tells me that it changed their life, including those on this table who've attended there. I don't know, 99 was more transformative for Imam Malik Mujahid here, but Dr. Siddiqi told me it was one of the most beautiful moments in his life. And through coming to the parliament now, I can't wait to share that experience with so many other people who have not had the opportunity to sit in a conference hall with thousands of other people who are just seriously different from you, but caring just as much about what we can do together. So I'm really grateful to Nadia for coming to me and figuring out how ISNA and the parliament can reach out to the Muslim community more and show the great work that's been done. I think if you take the opportunity to sit people in a room together and listen, that's a huge, huge step. So I hope now also religion is taken more seriously in the public sphere as a positive force. And I think we're really trying to push that message because we have to counterbalance all the negative things we hear about religion. Some of them aren't false, but there's a lot more good that goes along with believing in something that wants to make you a better person and respect humanity. So,
Great, thank you, Molly. Just really quick, how many people do you anticipate will be at the Parliament convention next month?
We're aiming for 10,000 people at least.
Okay.
And we're almost there.
Okay,
So.
great. Wow.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Okay, great. Imam Abdul Malik, so you are currently the chair of this convention. And so tell us a little bit about how that came about and what do you hope to accomplish at this convention?
Just for a point of clarification, he's chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Parliament. And one of our big product is doing this convention, or it's a conference actually. It's an international conference. Just for a point of clarification, because to be chair of a conference or convention is very different than being the chairman of the Board of Trustees. But Brother Malik is too modest to say anything.
Thank you.
But the attorney in me is saying, well, wait, we have to really be correct here for the
No,
record.
thank you. Thank you.
Of course,
Thank
of
you for that
course.
correction. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You see, not only in the world where we see hate, a cycle of hate, violence, and war, is increasingly becoming horrible. Seems going on the direction of becoming worse and worse. And right here in America, all statistics point out that hate, fear, and anger is rising. 10 years ago, just a couple of million people used to buy guns. Last year, it was 23 million people buying guns. Time magazine says that armed militias are all-time high, more than 1,000 of armed and practicing with live ammunition and whatnot. One of them actually had acquired the component to make a small nuclear bomb until in the domestic violence situation, his wife shot him dead. And then they discovered what he has accumulated already in Maine. President Obama received 400% more death threats than President Bush did. Is it in and out or something?
Might want to try the other one.
It's the NSA, Malik, keeping it quiet.
Yeah. Thank you for giving me a better mic. And these things are somewhat motivated by the census projection that by 2043, minorities are going to be majority in this country. So fear and anger on that change is resulting in hate of the other. After 9/11, it was mostly Muslims, but more than 300 laws have been passed against immigrants at state levels. About 10 of those laws are anti-Muslim laws, Islamophobia, people presented. So as fear, hate, and anger is rising in country, now this is a behavior. Fear is a behavior, anger is a behavior, hate is a behavior. You can pass laws against that, and those will come into being as civil rights movement has laws against discrimination and whatnot. But here's the challenge. Challenge is for America either to kill itself by the fear of the unknown and fear, anger, and hate, or somehow we bring it to light that in this global village, which America helped create it through the internet and whatnot, in this global village, diversity is a strength. Which other country in the world have people from almost all places in the world except America? We know the streets of the world, we know languages of the world, we have those people right here. So diversity in global village could be a strength for a country, only if we realize. Who will help that realize? And that, I think, is directly something which Interfaith addresses, because Interfaith is a diverse group by itself. I came to Interfaith from Peace and Justice Table. I came to it by, Burge movement. Burge, those who, how many of you are from Chicago? Could you raise hands? A good number of you, but good number outside. Burge used to be a police officer in Chicago who for 30 years was torturing people in Chicago to force them to, accept whatever he wanted them to accept. City lost millions of dollars compensating for those people out of tax money. So you come through Burge case or torture or homelessness or poverty issue or climate change. Most of the time, this table is an interfaith table. So interfaith people of faith, they have good influence on changing the behavior of people. Of course, through relationship, of course, through listening to each other, visiting each other's places, and many of these things are incorporated not only in the parliament program, but overall in the interfaith movement. So what will happen when you get to the parliament? A parliament event is actually a building block of interfaith movement. The first time the world probably heard of the term interfaith was 1893, which I don't know why Janaan missed. I missed because nobody tweeted about it. So at that time when it was born, we started listening process. Now, when you get to the parliament, and I hope that many of you will sign up, we have a booth there inside and you can gather information. One thing happens, people of faith tell what is my faith, not the dude on the TV. Did I say dude? Okay, delete that. You tell what your faith is, and you hear directly from the people who believe in their faith what their faith is. Second component of program is how my faith and your faith work with each other in our neighborhoods, in our cities, in our country and all. I mean, there'll be people from 80 countries and whatnot. The third component of the programming is that how together people of goodness, people who have loving relationship with each other, are trying to transform this world where hate is rising, where climate challenge is becoming a major challenge, and some people believe it may be already too late. But people of faith believe we need to do our job and things will change. Or where we face multiple challenges of income inequity and poverty in American neighborhood and around the world, how we can do that. All this conversation will take place there, but when we gather people, we don't expect them to talk and listen. You will have a booklet. That booklet will be a booklet of commitments. We have already developed 6 declarations. Committees have been working on it. It will be printed there and it will have blank pages. Or if you're like somebody else, you go by apps. That app is already available for you to download. After each program, there'll be 10-15 minutes for you to write down what is your personal commitment to handle that challenge. What you can do through your organization. So this Dalai Lama, each time I meet with him, he hammers this point, although I don't have many hairs left to cushion against his hammer, that what are we doing now? We need some action. So this parliament will not only have conversation about each other's faith and engagement and challenges the world faces, but also how we individually and our organization are going to contribute to change those things. So that's how we plan to handle it.
Thank you, Imam Abdul. If you don't mind just silencing your phones during the session. Thank you so much. So just to bring up a point that one of the greatest factors of anti-Muslim bigotry and hate and fear is that people don't know a Muslim, have never met a Muslim, have never engaged with a Muslim. So again, this is a great platform for Muslims to get to know people of other faiths. But something very interesting is happening, and it's a new experience for me. So I'm going to be personally participating on a panel with the American Humanists Association, and it's my first conversation and dialogue. Actually, the title of the panel is A Conversation with Humanists, Atheists, and Believers, and I am one of 2 panelists who is representing a believer. So this is just, for me, I see how far the parliament is pushing the conversation, and I don't know yet what will come out of this conversation, but would you like to maybe respond, Dr. Mohammad Siddiqi, on this particular dialogue, or maybe other similar dialogues that we're not very familiar with? Yes. Okay. So a humanist, interesting enough, again, it's a learning experience for me. Somehow the American Humanist Association featured me on one of their posters. It was just funny to see a muhajjaba, a covered person, on a flyer of an organization who does not believe in God, and basically their motto is "good without a God." So when they sent me the flyer, I was like, oh wow, this is very new. So that's what a humanist is. They do great things in the society, in the community. They try to better the community, but they don't actually believe in the existence of God, from how I understand it.
Thank you. Being the chair of the program committee, every moment that I have spent with proposals that we have received was a moment that has educated me and inspired me. About 2,000 program proposals that have been submitted from all over the world. Religions that I never heard before in my life. Ideas that I never thought that being a Muslim can think from this angle also about Islam. A Buddhist can come up with the idea that, according to my understanding of the Buddhism, is an antithesis of Buddhism. All of this can be covered in the parliament. So reading those proposals, I thought that, well, there are 10 or 11 or 15 or 20 religions, but the program covers almost about 50 different religions. And that showed human creativity and imagination of people who call themselves religious in the very traditional term and religious in a very non-traditional term. What will transpire actually in Salt Lake City from October 15 to 19? I can give you a summary, but I want to keep the suspense and invite you to come. And come and experience, because when I attended the 1993 Parliament, I was really, to some degree, shocked to learn that you can go on Lakeshore, because it happened at the Palmer House Hilton downtown, and there was a group that invited everybody who want to witness God to come on the Lakeshore, and in the moonlight, a number of devotees will dance and you can see God. It may sound weird, but it shows you that how human being can approach their creators in so many different ways. Now, some people ask me this question: does that really weakens your faith? I said, no. It strengthens my faith. It gives me an opportunity to think about my relationship with God and to thank Him that He has created this 7 billion people, the sea of people, and gave everyone to look at Him so differently. And Parliament is a place where you can come closer to these different people who will be focusing on these 3 critical issues that the world is facing now: climate change, poverty and hunger, war, violence, and hate. And 3 critical constituencies that we are focusing and hoping that they will come: youth, women, and indigenous people from all over the world. So it will be really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to inspire, enlighten all of us over there. And I hope I will see many of you over there.
Thank you so much. So we're running a little tight on time, and I want to leave some time for question and answers. But Sister Janaan, can you maybe speak to any of the programs that you are familiar with, or perhaps your participation in some of the Parliament programs?
Yeah, I sit on the Women's Task Force. I like to put a little plug in for that. This is the first year that we've actually doing a women's track. And it's not just a women's track. The Parliament officially begins on Thursday the 15th at 7 p.m. During the day of the 13th, we're actually having a women's assembly with top speakers from all around the world, including some speakers from here at ISNA who are going to be speaking, including, what's her name, Sheikha Tamara Gray. She's going to be actually having a lot of talks throughout. And addressing various issues, and then we're going to have a women's track that will run throughout, and then a final plenary in which we discuss the declaration and have people sign up to support the declaration. Myself, I'm going to be on a panel called Sharia 101, in which we have Sheikha to be talking about the basics of Sharia. And then we're going to have a conversation style with people, women from different parts of the world, to explain what what is it like to live Sharia in that particular country, and they'll see that Sharia is very fluid. And then I'll be speaking on a few other panels as well. That one is the one actually that really is kind of lighting the fire in my belly. My greatest embarrassment, if I were to have one, and I'm going to be honest, is the lack of Muslim participation. Wow. And people ask me why. Yeah. I say, I don't know. Is it arrogance? I don't need it. Well, we need to know each other. Why not? Are you going to be asked? Is there going to be is somebody going to try to proselytize you? No, I can assure you of that. I can promise you of that. Will you be able to control the conversation and define your deen to somebody else? Yes. Will you be asked questions about your deen? Yes. Can you ask other people about their faith? Yes. It was at a parliament that I first experienced the langar. How many of you have gone to a langar? MashaAllah. Isn't it awesome? You go there and you're fed by the Sikhs, and all they do, they keep filling your plate until you say, no, thank you. That's right. It was an incredible experience, and my friend said, my gosh, they put us to shame. It's true.
And they give you a little scarf to wear, too.
For the guys. For the guys. I mean, I was okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They give it to the sisters, too.
But that kind of experience, you get to gauge yourself against that, which is good. We're supposed to gauge. We're supposed to fight for righteousness. Who's better than who? We're told to do that in the Quran. And not just amongst ourselves as Muslims, but with other faiths. Why not? They set a high bar. We should be meeting and exceeding it. But more so, it's the lack of presence. Why is that? We have to ask ourselves and ask our communities. Getting financial support? Embarrassing. The pagans did a great job. The Baha'is, incredible. They were able to raise like tens of thousands of dollars. We're not a poor community, for God's sake. You guys know that.
That's right.
So why? I think we have to ask that individual question. And then ask ourselves, are we willing to step up to the plate? Are we willing to have a presence? Because if you're not, then you have no right to complain as to why people don't understand who we are.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
And that is so true. No, I've been in interfaith work for many years, and this is the persistent complaint that I hear. Where is your community? Where are you? How come you're not at the table? How come you don't take a seat, and join us in dialogue? And we don't know. And you can't blame them for the things that they think and they say about us. So thank you for saying that. And I mentioned already one of the panels that ISNA will be participating on, but I just want to mention the other two as well. ISNA will be hosting a panel called Humanity at the Heart of Islam and in the Hearts of Muslims. And the second panel is titled Clarifying Misconceptions About Islam, Muslims, A Step Towards Defeating ISIS. So those are the two other panels that ISNA will be participating. I want to take this time now to hear from you. Does anybody have, and please stand up and introduce yourself. I see, yes, one sister and then the brother in the front. Go ahead. Malaikum assalam.
My name is Malik Kennedy, and I am a Sufi Shiraga, and I'm also a Unitarian Universalist minister. In case you're not able to make it to the parliament, you have an opportunity for interfaith dialogue right here, right now. You may not know, but at ISNA this year, as well as last year, there are Christian and Jewish seminary students. Many of us are in the room, and also 10 mentors for these students who have come. They are studying to be Christian ministers and studying to be rabbis. They have been here the day before ISNA for the whole program. Would you like to stand up, my fellow?
Thank you, Melon, for introducing the Emerging Religious Leaders Program. We welcome you. We thank you for joining us. And if anybody has any questions, perhaps you can gather in the back and have, somewhat of a dialogue. There was a gentleman in white right here, and then the gentleman in the back. Go ahead.
My name is Abdul. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am active locally in interfaith matters there, but the panel has vast experience, and I'm wondering if they would like to share with all of us some of their best practice pointers for meaningful local interfaith dialogue and action.
That's a great question. Anybody can take it.
I will just make one point that in our interaction with people of other faith or even people with other faith, often I find that we make a statement and add a judgment with it. And immediately the other person turns off. So our conversation in interfaith has to start without a judgment. It's building of a relationship, an engagement. And my experience is that as soon as we insert a judgment, then the conversation stops there. I can just share you one of the most intriguing experiences that I had while in that university town. A pastor who invited us to his church several times and came to our mass several times with his congregation, one day came to me. And he said, well, you guys are such wonderful people, and I have come up with a proposal. And you are such a nice person that I have gathered the courage to present this proposal to you. I said, yeah, go ahead. And he said, is there any way that Muslims can accept Jesus as some part of God? All the problems will be gone. Now, I could have been angry or I could have laughed, but I saw in his face and in his voice a sincere approach to me. And I said, David, I can relate to you a similar story in the life of our prophet when many people approached him in Mecca and proposed to him that they can make him the leader, they can make him the richest person, but if he can stop saying that God is one. So there are differences and there are similarities. Believing in one God is at the core of Islam. And I don't think that if I tell you that this is not a point that I think anybody would consider among Muslims, but still I can tell you we can be friends and there could be a lot of areas of cooperation between our congregation and your congregation. Are you sad that I did not respond to you the way you have anticipated I would? He said, no, you were honest, and I appreciate that. And to this day, we are continuing on the path of working together on many good projects. What I am trying to say is that while doing interfaith work, we have to remember that there are so many different faiths, and there are certain differences too.
That's right. And we don't have to agree, but we just have to remain respectful. And I would like to give an opportunity for Imam Abdul Malik to respond as well.
I have a whole presentation about this point.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but the session ends in 1 minute, so if you could just try to respond in 1 minute. I apologize.
I'll respond in 15 seconds. Muslims are quite skeptic of dialogue, and there are multiple reasons for it. What I have seen is they are more willing to be engaged if goals are clear of a conversation or a meeting or interfaith organization. So clear goals and engagement on doing things, and dialogue will take place naturally.
Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Yes, and I'd just add that if we stick to our values of love and compassion, we don't have to worry about what impact somebody might have on us if they believe differently or they act differently. We know who we are, and we just have to stay our course, but it is important to engage. It is important to get to know other people, and if we don't reach out, then people don't know who we are. And one day we will be held accountable as well for not reaching out and getting to know our brothers and sisters. So with that, I'd like to end the session. I would like to thank all of you for coming and joining us during this panel. I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, the Parliament. We look forward to being with you in Salt Lake City. Best of luck with the planning, and I hope that our community, inshallah, will rise up to the challenge, and we will get greater participation from our Muslim community. And please visit the booth in the bazaar for the Parliament of the World's Religions. Thank you so much.